So you think you might have asbestos in your popcorn ceiling, or you know you do. Either way, I have answers for you. Hi, I'm Kyber with the PatchBoyz Help Desk, and today we're going to rapid fire through some asbestos popcorn ceiling questions so you can quickly get some answers. If you want to delve deeper into this topic, you can go into the website below this video and just read up a little more on these subjects, okay? So first, can popcorn ceilings have asbestos? Yes, absolutely, they can. Do all popcorn ceilings have asbestos? No, not all of them. How can I tell if my popcorn ceiling has asbestos? You would want to have it tested. Should I test my popcorn ceiling for asbestos? If it was built before 1986, yes, you certainly should. Now, if it was after 86, yes, you could potentially still have it if it was used illegally. Now, this is up to you to decide. Your contractor or environmental company is not legally obligated to test this for you, but it's not a bad idea to look into it. How do you test for asbestos in popcorn ceiling? Either an environmental company, an abatement company, or your contractor, if they're well versed in how to do this type 1 collection procedure, can do the collection for you. Where to get popcorn ceiling tested for asbestos? So a company such as ours can do this, and then we would take the samples to the lab, which would provide us with results, which we then in turn translate into a report that's easy to read and kind of decipher things for you and provide the next steps on how to proceed with your project. How dangerous is popcorn ceiling with asbestos? So if the ceiling is going to be untouched, you're fine. But if you're going to have little ones or grown ones or contractors touch, scrape, abrade, cut, alter, or any way, then you do want to have this tested for asbestos. It could be dangerous. The thing is, if those fibers are released, right, it's a mineral, asbestos is in a mineral, and if those fibrous minerals are released into the home, a home is more often than not a closed circuit environment, and it just gets recycled. And depending on how much was put into the air, you're consistently breathing that asbestos over the years. Now, there are risks associated with that. Asbestos can cause mesothelioma, pleural disease, asbestosis, and lung cancer, maybe other conditions. But this happens over time, and it's repeat exposure or continual exposure to these fibers. It does not happen in an instant. What years was asbestos used in popcorn ceiling? It was used up until 1985 legally. After 1985, if it was used illegally by contractors looking to offload bulk materials that they had purchased. When was asbestos last used in popcorn ceilings? Legally, 1985. Illegally, 1991 was the last time somebody found asbestos in popcorn ceiling. Obviously, that was 5 years after its legal use, or 6. So that was illegal. When did they stop using asbestos popcorn ceilings? Should have been 1985. When was asbestos banned in popcorn ceilings? You can see a lot of these are repetitions. January 1st of 1986 is when it was banned in Ontario. So a little caveat emptor here. When you're searching online, it's very important to search for Ontario. Canadian law may be similar. We focus on Ontario, but the States is a completely different date. I believe it was 10 years before Canada. So make sure that when you're comparing information, you're looking at Ontario-specific information because it's 1986. Despite what anybody else may tell you, 1986 is when it was banned for residential construction use. What does asbestos in popcorn ceiling look like? Asbestos fibers are 1/100th the percentage of a human hair. So if you took a human hair and split it up into 100 different pieces, that is how thick an asbestos fiber would be. We can't see that with the naked eye, which is why it needs to be tested. So you can't tell if anything has asbestos in it. There are some materials, I'm not talking about popcorn ceilings, so there are some materials that were used for its fire retarding properties, and these 100% of the time had asbestos. And that's why some people can say, I can tell you with 100% certainty that it has it, and they're just trying to save you money on a test. They don't know with 100% certainty, but every time that material is used, it's usually because of those properties, and they're trying to help you save money. But popcorn ceiling, you can't tell. How does asbestos abatement work? So there are 4 different types of asbestos abatement. Type 1, Type 2, Type 2 modified, which can include glove bag, and Type 3. Now, depending on what material is going to be abated, how much of it is going to be abated, the containment procedures for it, whether or not you plan to use wet suppression, and whether you're going to be using power tools or hand tools will affect what type of abatement you're going to do. So one really has to know the regulations and even has to refer back to those regulations quite often to plan out a new type of abatement project, because depending on the scope of work, sometimes you're bouncing back between those types of abatements to be able to execute the project. Now, whatever abatement procedure you pick, that is what you're going to use. You can't bounce between the stages during the actual work. It's just when you're planning, depending on what methods you're planning on removing it with, that you could see your project shift from one to the other. How does one remove popcorn ceilings with asbestos? So there are 2 ways of doing this. You have the Type 2 method, which is removal of the actual drywall, and this is a less expensive removal procedure. I'm not talking about the overall full project, I'm just talking about the removal. So this is where you remove the actual drywall, which has stipple on top of it, and this is the only sure way to actually get rid of all the asbestos. The second method is the Type 3 abatement procedure, which is where you're scraping. Now remember that asbestos fibers are microscopic, and you're using hand tools to remove microscopic elements. So you can rest assured that you're not going to get it all. Once you finish the procedure, it should be sealed in acrylic or some other equivalent product. But then if ever you go to address that ceiling in the future, or go to cut it or braid it or do something, there still are asbestos fibers in that ceiling, make no mistake. And that was the more expensive option in terms of the actual removal, right? The actual abatement. Then you still have to skim it if you're looking to have your ceilings smoothened, let's call it. You still have work to do later to get that done. How much is asbestos popcorn ceiling removal? A decent sized project can be between $10 and $15 a square foot just for the removal. We're not even talking about skimming the mud over top, which most asbestos removal companies won't do. We do in-house because we're both an abatement company and a finishing company. And we're the only one in Ottawa that does all of this without subbing it out. So there's a benefit to using PatchBoyz, is it's all done under one roof. But $10 to $15 is a lot of money. And we have another option for you that is a lot less expensive and provides the same finish while keeping a lot of that money in your pocket. Send us a message or give us a call, and we'd be happy to discuss our method with you. Removing asbestos popcorn ceiling DIY. So it would be irresponsible of us and legally dangerous of us to give anybody advice on how to remove popcorn ceiling on their own. A homeowner is legally allowed to do their own popcorn ceiling removal, but keep in mind that if you do it improperly and then you have people move into that home and it is tested and it does come back positive, depending on the circumstances, you could be held liable according to tort law. You have a responsibility to other people that you allow into your home or you sell your home to. So keep that in mind. Now, in terms of the financial, if you decide to do it yourself, I pray that you would take the training, which is not cheap, but you do the training, then you buy your negative air machines, all your rip proof, your tools that you use for the abatement. And after you've done everything, and you're also doing the project on your own, which would take more of your time away from your normal activities where you produce income, at the end of the day, you might not save that much money, right? If, for example, if you're a lawyer that makes $1,000 a day and you take 10 days to do a project that would take us 5 days, well, you actually lost money. But even if you're not a lawyer, you may only save, I don't want to get into it, but you wouldn't save that much money, and it certainly wouldn't be worth the risk to yourself, your family, your friends, or a future owner of said property. Why was asbestos used in popcorn ceilings? A lot of people think that asbestos has always been bad. And we've heard several times that, oh, my house was built by X builder, so I don't have asbestos. So, a lot of people have that negative connotation of asbestos, which is now logical. But back then, that wasn't the case. Asbestos actually has several good properties that, unfortunately, in today's world, don't outweigh the downsides. Never did, but we didn't know about the downsides in the past. Or somebody did and occluded those facts, right? But it wasn't a bad material. It was used by all ranges of qualities of builders. So one property was that it was a great filler material and binding agent, right? Because the fibers help different materials cling to each other through use of these fibers. And before asbestos was commonly used in lath and plaster homes, the material that came before asbestos was horsehair. You can demo an old home and you may find these hairs in the plaster, and that was horsehair that helped the plaster bind together and hold itself together. So it was a good filler, a good binder, and probably its highest benefit was its fire retarding properties. So when asbestos was used with enough concentration, it would prevent or reduce the burn rate of a certain material from going through that material as fast. So it would slow down the burning of a particular material or a home or a building or whatever have you, which is obviously an amazing feature to have to allow people to get out of a burning building or burning house. What percentage of popcorn ceilings contain asbestos? We can't give you a firm answer on that. We haven't sampled a statistically significant sample size of homes in Ontario. In Ottawa, we would say about 45% of the homes that we test come back positive when we're talking about homes before 1986. And that number actually increases a little bit as you get closer to 1986, still before 1986, not on the far side of it. Because asbestos production grew year over year before it was banned. So that's what we've found, and we've done over 1,000 tests in Ottawa, and that's just what we've found. Do we claim that to be statistically significant or suggest that you use this as legal advice? Absolutely not. You should always get the popcorn ceiling, stipple ceiling, or whichever material in your home tested before making any kind of decision, especially if it was built before 1986. What is the likelihood of asbestos in popcorn ceiling? Again, you would have to have that tested, because even though we have a 45% range, it's higher in some neighborhoods, lower in some neighborhoods, and of course everything that affects that is also when the home was built, closer to 86 or closer to the early 1920, which it was still found there. Asbestos has been mined since the Egyptian times. It's not a new material. It just grew in popularity. Are there grants for asbestos removal? There have been grants that included things such as asbestos removal as part of a larger project in the past. There was one that recently just passed that was an environmental grant, but to our knowledge, right now in April of 2024, there are none. When you watch this video, that might change. Please let us know. We would love to update our website with that grant information if it becomes available. Of course, we can't go back and edit this video, but the website will contain that. So you can look at the bottom of this video if you're on YouTube, click the show more, and you can click the URL to our website. And if we are aware of any grants, it will be at the bottom of this page, as this is the last question in this video. I hope you've enjoyed this Q&A, this questions and answers. And if there's anything else that we can answer for you, please don't hesitate to reach out. We'd be happy to answer your questions and give you a free quote on your popcorn ceiling removal project or any asbestos or finishing project you may have. Thanks again, and this is the PatchBoyz Help Desk.